All right, everyone, it's time to start up with part 3. This is more, maybe advanced, a little bit different techniques to making pins and how to make some different pins. I'm going to show you how to make a key pin and pin that is spooled, and you won't be able to tell that it's a pin and pin until you pull it apart. I'm going to show you how to make different types of pin and pins. Virtually pin and pin, which is a pin and pin key pin with an inner and outer, and a pin and pin driver pin with an inner and outer, and those are pretty slick to make. Now those are very time consuming to make, but they're pretty slick to make. So, well, what do we have here? I've got 3mm brass rod, and that is for making pins, and you can see the 3mm brass rod fits right in there perfectly, and it's a little bit snug, but one of the steps we're going to do will thin it down just a smidge and make it just right. And you guys will shit bricks when you see how good this stuff is to use. And you can buy this 3mm brass rod off of Amazon or eBay. This is brass tube. If you guys remember the multi-Yale or multi-quick set locks that I've made, this is the some of the material I used, and this here is 1.5mm brass rod, and well, that does the inner pins pretty slick because they fit right down in there. So that's what we're going to use to make the multi-pin and pins. I'm going to show you different carving techniques to make some more interesting styles of pins with your brass rod here. I'm going to show you threading and counter milling, and I'm going to show you how to take the top off and get it back on without completely destroying the lock. So we've got a lot to cover here today, guys. It's going to be a long video. It's going to be several scenes of me, cutting and pasting back and forth. So bear with me and we'll get things started. All right, so I'm going to start out with the brass rod, and well, what you see when you get it in there, it's going to be far too long. That's going to start wobbling out, and it's going to wind up bending it. So what we actually do to start with is we are going to cut it down just a little bit. You got a good pair of Gerber or Leathermans, it just cuts it right down. And that flew off my desk and landed in the corner somewhere, so that's all right. We'll go with this end. I should probably cut it down, not quite enough. Let me cut a little bit more off of that. There we go. And it's just flying across the desk. I'll shove that all the way back in there and get that in the chuck there. So give me just a second to grab a file. A couple of files, actually. And I'm looking for a little triangle square file. There we go, that one will work. Alright, so first off, flat file, we're going to file this flat. Go figure, right? Alright, now that that's filed flat, we'll do the trick that makes this 3mm brass rod absolutely perfect. A little bit of 400 grit sandpaper, and that sands it right down. Now, some good tricks with this stuff is you want to make a whole bunch of serrations and make a really serrated pin and just keep going all the way down, just cut it off where you get, or when you get to the end. Yeah, you could easily do that with this, and I recommend doing that. Let me get my blade out here. That's not the one I'm looking for. There it is. All right, so you just like a little serration, just all the way down as far as you want to go, and then just come back and cut off where you want your pins to end. Very perfect tool. for that. So it just works out really well. But the first thing I want to show you guys is one of my personal favorites, and it's one that I've come up with fairly recently, and it's a ball spool. One end of the spool, or T-pin, is shaped like a ball. And I'm going to show you guys how to carve that down using the hacksaw blade. And if that'll stay in focus, and stay in focus. My camera hates me, guys. Actually, I know what I can do. There we go. Finally getting it to focus. Alright, so you see I made my first cut here. The first cut just gives me the depth of where I want the ball to end at. So the rest of it is going to be shaping it around. Alright, we've got a nicely shaped ball on the end of that. It's got a little bit of a rough spot there, but I'm not worrying about that. But that ball will allow the pin to rotate just a little bit more if the ball is up in the chamber. And also on this lock, I'm going to show you something else we could do to make this ball a little bit more effective. Alright, so I'll need my hacksaw blade again. Alright, and the pin pops right off and leaves you with a pin that looks like that. Now, what are we going to do with that little nub? That's simple, guys. I got sandpaper here. I'm just going to buff it on this sandpaper, and I'll do that off camera real quick. Just about flat. And it's flat. There, it's rubbed off now. So now we got a ball spool. I'm just going to set that over there. Next, we're going to do a quick and easy T-pin on this, and I mean really quick and easy. Yep, I know it looks like I made a really nice serrated pin, but And now we've got a serrated T-pin. I just got to sand that little bit off. Okay, so that's a couple of really neat, really quick and easy pins. It's very easy to make spool pins. You can make any type of shape you want as long as you're creative. You can make the bomb pins. You can make king or pawn looking pins, queens, all sorts of different looking stuff on using this brass rod. It's very easy. It's just as strong as your normal key pins, and I love this stuff. Now I'm going to make a regular pin real quick, and this one's actually going to be used in a special key pin. And you see where I went wrong there. I actually cut one just a little bit too short, so no biggie. That diameter looks like it'll make a nice inner pin. Alright, so I'm going to cut this off with a little bit different tool this time. Alright, and there's our T-pin that we made. And it's got a little bit of serration on it, and I kind of like it, so I'm not going to sand that one smooth. That should be the right diameter for an inner pin on a key pin. Give me a second. I'm going to change up some stuff, and we'll get right back. Now I can show you why I cut that last T-pin. You see this really long driver pin that is a spool? Well, it's going to wind up being a key pin. And you see it's too tall, but if you have long driver pins like this and you need a long key pin, this is very perfect material to use. So what am I going to do? Well, I'll show you. Alright, I got that into the Dremel. And let's go ahead and tighten up the chuck. There we go. That's nice and even, no wobble. Alright, so, well, the first thing we want to do is when we're making a key pin is we want to file the bevel. And we'll just go ahead and do that now. Alright, as you see, we got the bevel filed in, and I'm going to polish it up just a little bit. And one thing you'll notice is that this key pin will probably still be too long when I stick it down into the chamber, but that's not a big deal. With these key pins, we can just dial down, adjust, put it back in the Dremel, and adjust. I mean, if you're patient, we can always adjust. See, it's just a little bit too long, so I can actually take, that's about a 1/16 of an inch, I could take that off the bottom, repoint that tip, and we're good to go. So I'm going to do that off camera real quick, and then we'll come back to it. Alright, I ground it off and reprofiled it, and as you can see, it rides on that key just perfectly now. So, well, what are we going to do now? Well, we're going to cut more off of it. after I drill a hole in it, of course. And I'll show you why. Let me get this out of the way and dump that pin back out because I need it. Okay. So, this time we're going to put the key pin in the other direction. Make sure it's nice and even, not wobbling. I can't stress that enough. That's why I say it so often. All right. So, I'm going to grab my handy dandy drill bit and my pliers. And we're going to drill a hole straight down the middle of this puppy. I'm going to have to turn this to where I can actually see it better, so it might not be as easy on the camera, but we'll see. Okay, as you saw what I was doing, I was gauging that with my fingernail, just so I could see. Where's my little key pin at? There it is. There's my T-pin. I want to see if that fits in there now. I did wobble that out just a little bit. Yes, that fits in there perfect. All right, so now we're going to grind up the top of this spool. We're just going to make it disappear. Alright, let's see how well that sits in there now. It should fit nice and flush with the top of that spool. And there we go. We hardly have a seam there. It is a spool all the way around. Well, that's going to be our new key pin in chamber number 4, I think. That's going to be better than just a regular spool, wouldn't it? Let me set that in chamber 4. Let me ditch that pin out of chamber 4. Alright guys, give me a second and I'll get some more stuff ready for us here. Alright, now we're going to do something a little bit tricky with chamber 4 in this lock. Well, chamber 4 is a really short chamber. It's going to be high up there, a lot of reach, and we're going to do something a little bit different with it. But in order to do that, I don't have any wafers, so I'm going to make one. This is a special type of wafer, by the way. This is a pin and pin wafer. That's all the distance we need to go deep, just maybe about a 1/16 of an inch. Okay, and as soon as I find out where that thing went, never mind, I just did, it landed on my shirt. Okay, and there's our little pin and pin wafer. You notice that we cut it off just at the right point, just about when the drill was about to go through it. So, like I said, that's just a wafer, and the driver pin is actually going to rest on that. So I want to set that right over here. And we're going to go with our brass rod now, guys. I'm sure some of you probably wanted to see this, and I'll get some of it cut down, and I'll come back to you in the next. I need to show you that this is the most convoluted and technical method to making a pin and pin I've ever come up with. But I'm going to share it with you guys if you guys want to hang with me here. If not, just fast forward to the next segment. But, okay, so I've taken it, I've ground off my cut mark, and I've sanded it a little bit. So we're going to do this one in what, chamber 6? Okay, chamber 6 has, that fits right there in the keyway. And the best way I found to mark these is to take my hacksaw and start a cut. I know you waste a little bit of material doing it that way, but that's the easiest way I found to mark these. So let me go ahead and get this back into the chuck, and we'll get this cut down. Okay, nice and even. And these pins, guys, they have to be, for them to work, they have to be right on the money. They can't be off by 1 iota. All right, so we're going to turn this on, and you should be able to see the little silver flash. Okay, we get it down to where the walls are nice and thin, and snap. Snaps right off. Fairly clean, but we still have to sand that, so let me do that real quick. Alrighty. And that be sanded. Okay, let's turn this down. And let's see if I followed my mark well enough. Actually, I need to sand that off just a little bit more. It's a little rough around the edge. So, give me just a second here. I sanded down, and it looks like I met my line right on the money. I'm just a hair heavy. I can fix that with a little bit of sandpaper. So, not a big deal there. Our next contestant would be the inner pin, and we do the inner pin the same way. We'll stick it in the hole, we'll mark it with the saw, and then we'll cut it off. So let me go ahead and do that off camera, and I'll show you what we have when we're done. All right, I've got the inner pin all cut down to size and matching, and just like the first one, if you got to do a little bit of fine tuning, do it, because these pins need it. They are a little bit finicky, and they're a little bit touchy, so that type of pin always needs fine tuning. And let's see here. We're going to put that pin in chamber 6, right? So what did I have originally cut? Oh, that's right, a little spool. Well, since we're advancing this lock up a little bit, we're taking that spool out, and we're going with that. Well, what are we going to need now? We're going to need a driver just like that one. So let me go ahead and get those made up, and I'll get those laid out. And, well, let's go with the next part. It's going to be a 3-part pin. And I'll come back to that as soon as I make the drivers for this one. This is the last pin that I'm going to make for this lock before we start doing some other stuff. And, well, yeah, definitely the last pin. I got 2 pins in here I haven't modified yet, but the last pin is going to be a 3-part pin. And 3-part pins can be a little bit tricky, but this one's going to be a driver pin, so we don't have to put a whole ton of precision into it. Okay. So I'm going to get my brass tube in here. I want to cut the brass tube down. Alright, I got the tube cut down, and that's going to be our collar for the 3-part pin. Okay, so I'm just going to set that over there in the tray. And, well, what I want to make now is a short T-pin. So, let me take this out of here. Take that chuck out entirely. Replace it with this chuck. And since you guys have seen T-pins made, I'm going to skip past this part. So we've got all the pins made up for this lock, and I'm sitting there holding the 3-part pin because I wanted to show you how that one works. Okay. You got a T-pin on the bottom, you got a hollow collar, and you got a T-pin on top. And they can wiggle and wag and do all sorts of crazy stuff, give very strange feedback. And as long as that collar can slip up and down just a little bit, it'll make life great. So don't make a T-pin longer than the collar or else it won't work at all. All right, so, well, what are we going to do with this lock? Well, let's see here. I made this one off camera, so we'll replace that one with our trailer hitch. Yeah, I got enough spools. We'll put that little barrel pin in place of the spool. That should still keep us with a balanced pin stack. Should be interesting. Alright, so let's go ahead and figure out which chambers we want to thread and which chambers we want to countermill. And when I do that, I will actually go ahead and load all the key pins up into the plug here. I'm going to have to sand that pin down a little bit, because if I thread that chamber, it's going to want to stick. I have to sand the top of that T-pin just a little bit for fine tuning. I'll have to sand that one as well. And I shouldn't have to sand this one at all, but that's our pin and pin. So everything's in there just fine. I don't think I'll do any threading or anything to the chamber 6 because these pin and pins, I'm not real sure how they'll react with that, whether it'll screw the lock up or not. So we're going to leave those out. Looks like some good countermilling candidates would actually be chambers 1, 2, and probably 4, but I think I'm just going to thread 4. So let me get some pins in order that might make this a little bit more interesting. I'm going to put this trailer hitch in 1. I'll leave this pin and pin right here, and chamber 3. Yeah, I think that's going to work. Yeah, so we're going to countermill 1 and 2, and I'm going to thread the rest. So that should work out just fine. You know, so these guys are pretty close to the shear line, so we do have like a double overset trap here. But these pin and pin key pins are supposed to be very evil traps. You see everything fits nice and flush at the shear line here. I just need to do a little bit of trimming on these pins, and well, then we'll be good to go. So, well, we've gotten that far. So let me dump these out. I'm not going to show you guys the final assembly of this lock until I get it all done. and I'll do all of that off camera and bring it back to you finished. But we still got a few things that I got to show you. Now, I've showed counter milling before on another lock making video, but I'm more than happy to show it again. My subscriber base is up a little bit higher now than it used to be, so definitely more people will see it, and it will help more people seeing it again. That's what I'm all about, helping out the fellow picker. Okay, so counter milling, that's our first task. Well, you're going to need a Dremel without that cutoff blade. You're going to need a grinding bit, and I thought I had one right here handy. And of course I didn't. But here's one. Alright, so I need a little, I guess that would be an engraving bit. Chuck it up into the Dremel, nice and tight. You guys always notice I'm saying nice and tight on so much stuff here. It might be getting a little bit ridiculous, but and here we go. Now I've got two nicely counter-milled chambers, and in my book, guys, counter-milling and undercutting pretty much the same thing. So there we go. All right, so now we want to thread them up. Get your cordless drill out. Put your 6/32 or 6-32 and thread till it stops, back it out. Thread till it stops, back it out. Thread till it stops, and back it out. Okay, so we're left with sometimes a little bit of a burr, and in this case, I don't have one. So let me grab something, and I'm not sure which drawer I stuck it in. There it is. So if you got a little bit of a burr there, that will hinder lock operation. So just take a big fat drill bit, twirl it around a few times, try not to dig into it, and that'll take that little bit of burr off. Alright, so we're done with the plug. And now we got to deal with that pesky top. Well, believe it or not, guys, that's actually a lot easier to get taken off than you think. And the method I use is I jab it with my pocket knife until I stab myself in the finger. Oh, no, wait a minute. I don't stab myself in the finger. Alright, so let me get my other Dremel out of the way here. I'm done with it. And now that it's all screwed down, Okay. I've got the kick clamped up into the vise. And I'm going to use a crappy knife that I don't really give a crap about. Hence why it's a crappy knife. And I'm just going to pry up just a little bit. And now I'm going to grab it with my pliers. I'm not worried about tearing or bending too much. And it just comes off that easy. And that's what it looks like when it comes off. It's not going to go back on like that, so let me show you my little trick. Is I will clamp it back up in the vise. Some of you probably waited for this entire part of the video just for this. Alright, got it clamped up in the vise. You notice I don't have it clamped up in all the way. I'm going to take a block. This time it's a, well, it's aluminum lock stand. I'm going to grab something heavy-ish, like in this case, a screwdriver. And fold it over like so. Why am I folding it over? That's to make it easier to put back on. Figure out which way to unscrew that. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Come on, Brent. Okay. Now that'll slide on there easier and it'll be easier to put back on. So, well, which ones were we going to thread? Well, we were going to thread chambers 3, 4, and 5. So, just like the other one, it helps if you have the drill going the right way. And a lot of people say you have to use tap magic, but if you got a nice sharp tap like I do, you put your drill on high speed and just let it eat. It'll make nice threads. Okay. Alright, so we want to do one more crazy thing to this lock. You're like, well, how can we get any crazier? We're going to undercut a Bible chamber. I'm going to show you how I do that. Now, there are methods for undercutting chambers other than chambers 1 and 6 or 1 and 5, depending on whatever the first and last chamber is. But this is the method for doing the first or last chambers. And I want to start with chamber 1. You notice I've still got my bit here, and I've actually pulled it out further. Alright, and as you can see, we've got a nice undercut right there. And we've got a little bit of burr here. So what do I do about the burrs? Well, I grab a file, and I grab a specific file, not a Pacific file. And I grab, it's flat on one side, rounded on the other, and I just file at it just a little bit, and those rough spots are gone. Okay, now getting this back on. Very simple. I just slide it in. I just slide it in and try to keep it from popping up. There we go. Okay, it slid back in. I'm going to clamp it back up into the vise. Clamp it up good and tight. And for this one, I need a screwdriver. and something to whack the screwdriver with. So I'm going to come right about the middle of this thing, give it a good whack, and just move around. See, I know I'm blocking the camera a little bit here, but I'm right-handed, guys. Sorry about that. All right. All right, and that top is back on, and it's not going anywhere. If you're worried about that top coming off just a little bit, take your pliers that's got cutters on them and just give them a little squeeze, and that just crimps the ends in a little bit more. All right, so let me get this lock assembled, and I'll come back to the camera and we'll give it the first turn and see if it works. All right, I've got all the pins in, and guys, I'll tell you what, that 3-part pin and pin, that thing is a exercise in trying not to cuss it to get it into there. So fun to put together. Should be an interesting pick. We got some fun stuff going in here. We started out with how to make a challenge lock. I went through just about everything I know how to do in making a challenge lock in these guys. So if there's anything you guys ever want to know in the future, just let me know in the comments, and I'll see what I could put together for you. So let's go ahead and slide this together and do our first test operation. Okay, it's locked up, and the key. This is the moment of truth. This is where the oh, there we go. That is smooth, ladies and gentlemen. We got a good worker. So I am labeling this lock. This lock is going to be called 1 year, because as part of my first year special, guys, it's been all about giving all the information I know about making a good challenge lock to the public. So this lock is now labeled 1 year, and it's going to go out in the circulation whenever I make a trade. But here we go, guys. How to make a challenge lock, part 3. Everyone, I hope, and I really do hope, that you found everything that we did in here informative. I hope that maybe I entertained you somewhat by maybe some of my talking or stories or whatever I've told. And I really hope that you guys come back and keep checking on the new videos that I put out. The biggest majority of my videos is just straight up picking challenge locks. And every once in a while, I'll do a giveaway. And every once in a while, I'll do a video like this. So thank you guys very, very much. I highly appreciate your patronage. And, it's just been an awesome first year. Stay safe. Don't do anything illegal. And as always, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.